Hey, how you going out there? This is your boy Rolando with XY Spark. Thank you for joining us. We have started season two, and we are so glad that you continue to be a part of the XY Spark family. This evening, we have a wonderful presentation that we want to do with you. We do hope that you will stay tuned. We do hope that you will comment, you'll continue to share with us as we seek to provide for you some quality conversations that's going to help you and all those who are listening to us to be a part of this process. We continue to remind you that we have our upcoming program. We have our upcoming program. We have a program that we are planning to have on Father's Day, June 20th. It's a men's march for mental health awareness. We are hoping that this pandemic will be more under control. And after that, we are hoping then that we'll be able to launch this march. If we can't do it out there in the community, we want to do it virtually. So on the week of June 15 through 20, which is Men's Health Week, we want to have this Men's Mental Health Awareness March. We do hope that you will put it on your calendars and seek to be a part of this presentation. And so please stay with us this evening. We have a wonderful presentation lined up for you, and please don't go away. We'll be right back.
Grief and loss, trauma, mental health, alcohol and drug use, gender roles, anger management, self-esteem, sexual abuse, domestic violence, and the pressures of societal norms are real-life issues that affect men. Join Rolando, psychotherapist, author, life coach, and motivational speaker that has dedicated his profession to working with men to find a healthier alternative to cope and handle these stressors. Rolando believes that men are lacking in social, psychological, emotional, and spiritual support that is necessary for a lifestyle that promotes healthy masculinity. We invite you to join us on XY Spark, where we discuss issues that men face. At XY Spark, we believe there's a spark in you.
Thank you so much for staying with us. This is your boy Rolando on Express Spark. And this evening we have a wonderful presentation that we would like to share with you. And we will be talking with you this evening about dealing with some of those core beliefs. Because believe it or not, there are some core beliefs that we have that many of us struggle with, and we want to seek to see if there are ways that we can seek to deal with some of those core beliefs. So we do hope that our presentation this evening will really bring you some understanding, will bring you into that space or bring you into that place where you develop more skills and more knowledge on how to deal with some of those core beliefs. This evening, we will be facilitating or reading from this beautiful book. This book was written, I think it was published in 1988 by Charles Whitfield, MD, entitled Healing the Child Within. This is a powerful little book, and I want to share with you some insight based on what Whitfield has been, a rather, what Whitfield spoke about. And I do hope that as we have this discussion this evening, you will receive some good insight. And so, the author here in this book, he started off by highlighting to us at least 14 core issues, at least 14 core issues that you or I need to be aware of. And so I would like to start off by reading for you just a small paragraph from this book. He says here that an issue is any conflict, concern, or potential problem, whether conscious or unconscious, that is incomplete for us or needs action to change. I want to read that again. An issue is any conflict, concern, or potential problem, whether conscious or unconscious, that is incomplete for us or needs action to change. And so, based on this quote, based on this paragraph, Whitfield is saying that issues are things that are there that require attention in order for them to change. So let's hear some of these core issues based on what Whitfield is promoting. Number one, he says some of those core issues that we have are issues as it relates to control. If you are someone who likes to be in control, then something is wrong with that behavior. You want to start challenging yourself and ask yourself, why do I need to always be in control? Is there something that's going on? Is there something that has occurred in my life why I feel that I must always have control? So that's one point when we feel like we always need to be in control. The second point here is that we have trust issues. Having trust issues is a very, very challenging thing because when we don't trust, we tend to be a lot more on edge. When we don't trust, we tend to be a lot more, we're a lot easily flustered because in our minds, we are normally thinking about the worst case scenarios because we don't feel we can trust anybody. We don't trust ourselves sometimes, even. Okay? And so when we don't have trust, we also swim in a lot of insecurities. And so this limited ability to trust or unwillingness to trust causes us to be insecure and it impacts our relationships. So we want to challenge that this evening. Then another core issue is that we really struggle as it relates to understanding our feelings. Sometimes you talk to persons and they will say, I really don't know how I'm feeling right now. It's okay for you to pay attention to those feelings. It's okay for you to recognize that, hey, I'm a human being and I have feelings, and it's okay for me to acknowledge those feelings. So that's big point number three. Big point number four is this is being over responsible. If we are over responsible, Whitfield is saying that this is a core issue, and we want to take time to really validate and question why is it that I feel that I need to be overly responsible all the time and in all cases. The next point is this neglect our own needs. Remember some time ago we highlighted about codependent relationships. And right here, again, we are see something similar being mentioned where one of the core issue is that we neglect our needs. A lot of men are guilty of this. A lot of us are guilty of neglecting our own needs because we strongly believe that it's my responsibility to look after my family and my kids, and I don't matter. I want to challenge you to say that is not true. You do matter. And in order for you to provide valuable life transformative support for your family, you've got to recognize that you are as valuable as every other member in your family. Your wife is valuable, your kids are valuable, but so are you. So I want to remind you that you are valuable, that you have worth, that you mean something to somebody. Okay? And so I want you to remember this as you go forward. Here is the next big point. The next big point is this. We have what we call a all or none thinking and behaving. All or none thinking or behaving. We want to break away from this all or none. thinking. We want to recognize that this kind of mindset is more destructive than it is constructive. So if we are in that all or nothing thinking, we want to break away from that so that we can grow, so that we can become the best version of ourselves as we continue to evolve into who we are, we were made to be. The next big point that we want to mention here is that what we have is high tolerance for inappropriate behavior and low self esteem. High tolerance for inappropriate behavior and low self esteem. These things happens to us, and as they're happening to us, it is showing us and challenging us to take that step back and say, hey, is this what I've been doing? Is this how I've been living my life? Do I have this issue where I have a high tolerance for inappropriate behavior and low self-esteem? Now, what are some of the inappropriate things that you have been tolerating in your life? And have you been doing it because you don't want to feel left out? Are you doing it because you feel like, well, if I don't do it, they'll think I'm a party pooper? Are you doing it because you feel like that's where you belong? But what if that's not where you belong? What if that crowd that you've been hanging with is the crowd that has been destroying your well being, your psychological and your emotional health? What if that crowd has been causing you to make bad choices that's destroying your relationship? So I want you to think about it. If you are someone who has a high tolerance for inappropriate behavior and low self esteem, that's an issue. And I would say that's something that you need to work on in order to grow. Now, outside of those pointers that I've raised, it's so ironic that Whitfield decided to add a few more to all that we talked mentioned previously. One that he mentioned here is being real. Now, some persons, when they hear about being real, there are some men who, when they hear being real, they think it's hitting the nail on the head all the time and not being mindful of the possibility that they may be offending somebody or they may be saying something that is a trigger for somebody. Being real is not saying that we should be that guy who cuts straight to the point all the time. Being real is learning how to be assertive and respectful. Being real is recognizing that you're not the only one in the room and that you're not the only person who has feelings and that you're not the only person who would like to have a healthy, happy relationship. So being real is understanding the importance of all those things that I just mentioned. The next thing that Whitfield mentioned in his writing is grieving or ungrieved losses. A lot of men, a lot of men, we are so guilty of that. We are not, we don't have enough time to step back and recognize that we have lost something and that it's okay to grieve. And so I would want to challenge you to go forward and ask yourself, how can I give myself permission to grieve that loss? What have you lost during the pandemic? Did you lose a friend? Did you lose a family member? Did you lose a job? Did you lose some of the things that you were normally able to access readily and now it's not happening? Have you allowed yourself to grieve those losses, or have you uh, been ignoring how that has impacted your life? And has the impact of that loss been trickling down into some really unexplained behaviors as you relate to your significant others, as you relate to your kids, as you relate to those who you come in contact with? Do you find that your behaviors, your tolerance level has gotten a lot less than it was before, it could be as a result of unrecognized and um, untreated grief. And so I would want to say you need to start recognizing that grief. And so grieving or ungrieved losses is great because what it does, it helps us to heal. And I'm saying that the healing is going to come as we recognize that the grieving is a part of the healing. So we have got to allow ourselves to grieve so that we can be released from that pressure and the strain that we have been carrying along. The next one that he mentioned here is fear of abandonment. You know, right here in our country, domestic violence is so prevalent. And in most cases, I'm not saying in all cases, in most cases, men are the aggressors. And a lot of men who are guilty of being offenders of domestic violence is because they are struggling with this fear of abandonment. So they feel if their relationship doesn't work out, then they have not learned how to manage their emotions. They get angry and they end up harming their significant others because they fear abandonment. And so if this is how, or if this is the belief system that you have, then it's an issue and you need to connect and do some work for personal development and personal growth. The next point that Whitfield mentions here is difficulty resolving conflict. Difficulty resolving conflict. We have to learn how to resolve conflict and do it in a professional, healthy way. We have to learn how to resolve conflicts in our relationships. A lot of us as men, we have not learned proper conflict resolution. And so we fight and we bicker and we shut down and we head, to alcohol, and we head to compulsive behaviors, and we head to all different form of unhealthy ways whereby we feel that by doing this, the conflict or the unresolved conflict, it will just work itself out. But we want to learn how to deal with conflict so that we can heal and our relationships can be healthier and better. There's another one, and this one is so powerful. It says, difficulty giving and receiving love. Difficulty giving love and receiving love. What is love? What is love to you? Have you grown up in an environment where you are not quite sure what love is? And so, because of that, you don't understand how to give it. And when you're receiving it, you resist, you push back, because in your mind, you are saying, I don't deserve it. You may be saying to your partner, I don't deserve you. I don't deserve to be loved the way you're loving me. And so here's what we do. We self-sabotage. We self-sabotage. So we'll have a good relationship and we sabotage that relationship by stepping out. We sabotage that relationship by being aggressive. We sabotage that relationship by getting engaged in behaviors that turns our partners away. We sabotage those relationships because of the beliefs that we have about ourselves. And so we want to learn how to give love and how to receive love. We want to understand that we've got to start loving and appreciating ourselves more so that we can extend that love to those around us. And that is so important. So, as men, we have got to develop the skill to learn and explore the possibility of learning to love ourselves. I'm not talking about being narcissistic. I'm not talking about being so full of myself that I have the doesn't don't have the ability to love somebody else. What I'm saying is we have got to learn now what it means to really love ourselves. And in order to do that, we have got to learn to forgive ourselves. We have got to learn to open ourselves up to healing and transformation and growth so that when love comes our way, we can recognize it and we can receive it with open hands and open hearts. So we've got to learn how to love. We've got to learn how to give, and we've got to learn how to receive love. Now, Whitfield continues to talk with us, and he says something so beautiful. Here's what Whitfield says. Whitfield says here, he says, core issues do not present themselves to us as an issue. Rather, they present at first as problems in our everyday life. So, oftentimes, some of the challenges that we're having in our everyday life, they are happening because of underlying issues. And those underlying issues are the reasons why we are functioning the way we are in our everyday life. So, the recommendation is for you to take some time and address it. It's important for you to take the time and say, okay, this is happening too often. I need to do something different. I need to take a step back and evaluate the things that I'm doing in order to change the cycle and break away from these behaviors. And so I really love the way that Whitfield puts it here, because he's saying when we see all those everyday things happening, they go deeper. They sink to the core beliefs that we have about ourselves. Whitfield continues to reiterate the idea where he talks about uh, us having this all or nothing thinking. So there's no middle ground. The thing is either cold or it's hot. It's either 0 or 10. It's either good or bad. And when we live our lives that way, it becomes so much easier for us to stay isolated in our own preconceived ideas. And what we want to do is we want to take that step back and reflect and ask ourselves, have I been living my life within this all or nothing thinking mentality? And if that's how we've been living, we want to address those issues. Here's another thing that comes along with the all or nothing thinking. We also are just as equally harsh with ourselves. So we want to challenge that. We want to move away from looking at ourselves through those lenses and seek to see, how do we grow? How do we develop? How do we build? How do we become better at what we are doing? How do we move into that different realm where we are able now to do better at what we're doing? So we want to recognize that. Whitfield continues to say this. He says, unrealistically, we limit ourselves. We limit ourselves. We limit ourselves when we move away from all those things that we need to do, but we're not willing to do them. Listen what he says here. He says here that while all or nothing thinking can occur in many parental homes, it occurs especially often among fundamentalists who are religious parents. He says sometimes those who practice spirituality and religion, he says, they can be rigid, punitive, judgmental, and perfectionistic. He says they're often rigid, they're often just there in a space where they are not helping. And so they say, we want to move away from that. We want to examine the control. We want to examine the control. Some of us, we like to be in control. Control, which we said perhaps is the most dominant issue in our lives. We want to be in control. We want to take over. We want to cross all T's and jot all I's. Everything has to pass through us. We want to learn to not live our lives that way so that we can become more and become better at who we are. We're so great that you decided to be a part of our discussion here on XY Spark this evening. And we continue to encourage you to join us again for our live podcast. We will be with you again this coming Wednesday. You can't afford to miss it at 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Please, we do look forward to having you being a part of our conversation. We do look forward to having you join with us. Until next time, this is your boy Rolando on XY Spark. Thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you again real soon. Have a good one.
Please join Rolando next time on XY Spark as he engages us in practical discussions that promotes healthy masculinity and challenge men to live extraordinary lives. At XY Spark, we believe there's a spark in you.